In my experience though, there's nothing more important than properly defining a role. For example, the number of times I get given a brief from a client to go and find a job, but they've got no real idea what they're looking for in the candidate or what really they want the job to be or the role to be.
Well, I think it's very important that whenever you do get a new role, and this is a mistake we see with a lot of companies, is actually start it from scratch. Don't rely on last year or the year before's specification, and make sure that you're not only looking at skills but putting competencies in there as well. It's absolutely vital.
And in my experience, the most effective recruiters are those that really think about the role and put together key candidate requirements and job responsibilities all together into a traditional job specification or accountability statement. I think it defines a role in their head. It allows them to be able to brief agencies or third-party partners more effectively, and it gets them what they want in the long run. And I think overall streamlines everything.
I agree with that.
Creating a solid recruitment plan is probably one of the most important tasks that a client will have to do. It's important to stick everything in there, including timelines, any kind of key requirements, and within that plan, make sure you absolutely stick to it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And there's a number of areas that you need to have within your recruitment plan. One of the first ones is where to actually advertise the role. How are you actually going to attract people?
I'm also guessing it's quite important to plan and brief the relevant agency, be that an advertising agency or also a recruitment agency, and so they're going to know where to go and place the advert as well.
Quite right.
I think if you schedule closing dates for applications as well, that helps because it gives you an opportunity to keep the timelines tight. So you're looking at first interviews, second interviews, and again, it's gearing expectations for yourself, candidates, and everyone in the business so that you know when the recruitment process will end.
Also be specific. How many candidates do you actually want to see for first interview? And initially, don't go over it.
Yeah.
One thing I like to do when I'm scheduling the interviews, so I've agreed on how many I want for the first interview, I then like to schedule them all on the same day. I think it helps in the planning because you've got one day put aside to be able to do it, so it's easier in terms of your diary plan and availability, but it's also good because it gives you a candidate comparison as well. It's very difficult to compare a candidate last Thursday to one that you see next Friday to another one that you see in a week on Monday, all on the same day, 10, 12, 2, 4, much easier to remember and much easier to get a comparison, I think.
I think for every task within the plan as well, accountability is important, so assign some internal responsibility to it. I think ownership of a task is very important, and make sure that ownership is communicated to the relevant individual so they know what's expected of them, the deadline they've got to do it, and it's just, I suppose it's effective project management in a way, but it means everything comes together when you want it to come together.
Yeah. And I think we do need to make it as professional as possible, and that means assigning enough time to acknowledge every candidate's application and where they are in the process to make yourself an employer of choice, as it were.
That's a good idea. The one thing that does get overlooked sometimes in this process is the notice period for the candidate. And people say, well, I've got a job, I want it to start then. And so they get an interview process that takes them up to it starting then. Well, hang on a minute, they've got a month's notice, 2 months' notice, 3 months' notice. So just as a top tip, remember that when you're working out when you want somebody to start in your plan of the onboarding part of the process, remember that there's a notice period as well.
Seen that happen a few times.
Yeah, can imagine.
I mean, in fairness, you can say all of these things, you can do all of these things, but if you don't stick to it, then it's absolutely not worth it. If a position is business critical, then it could be costing you money by not doing it effectively. And if you don't stick to any of these points, you could be delaying the start of the person actually joining you. So sticking to what we've said earlier is absolutely vital for any recruitment process.
So plan it, stick to it, achieve it.
Spot on.